Folks, hello. Welcome to the Tavern Chat podcast. This is Talking Crit with Erik Tenkar and Bad Mike. We're going to call this the post-election. Let's talk about things that are...
Let's talk about anything else but the election.
Let's talk about fun stuff. So, yeah. And we're going to do what we usually do, which means we're going to have a bit of a sandbox here, like a hex crawl. You know, we talked a little bit before coming into this podcast about what we wanted to touch upon. And one of the things that I did find interesting, because I didn't think about this until Mike brought this up, because I was talking about Kickstarter and Kickstarter pricing, but Mike brought up a good point that, and this is observation, doesn't mean that it actually is true, but it's just from what we've both observed, is that there have been a lot more gaming Kickstarters that have failed to fund, or maybe they funded, but they were pulled before they completed the funding period because, I guess, COVID.
There's a lot of reasons, but I think we can blame COVID for this, because whether it's people who don't have a lot of extra money to be spending on games, or whether or not they're just, I mean, look, there's a lot of real life concerns this year, so a lot of people really weren't worried too much about getting a Kickstarter. I mean, I knew some Kickstarters did really well, but I also know a lot that got pulled before the end. That's the new thing. A lot of people don't let their Kickstarter go through if it's not going to fund. They just go ahead and pull it.
Right, or even if I've seen some that, funded, but they weren't going to fund at a level that I guess,
right.
The goal was I'm making this a low goal so I can put in stretch goals that I know I'll hit, and then it's like, ooh, we're not hitting.
I know from many friends who've had Kickstarters, many friends, the worst thing that can happen, it's not your Kickstarter not funding, it barely funds.
Right.
Because usually your lowest level is this is the amount of money I need to get this out the door, and I won't make any money, by the way. I mean, this is just getting it out the door. So I'm really hoping when I ask for $10,000, I'm really hoping I get 20, because 10,000 just pays for everything.
Right.
And then past that, I might make a little money. So yeah, the worst thing can happen with the $10,000 Kickstarter is have it funded, $10,050. Then you're like, well, I got to get it out, but I'm really not going to make any money off this. So I'm just doing it for the fans type of
thing.
Right.
It becomes a time sink, and that's a shame. But I'm not going to name Kickstarters, but I have observed a few over the last, 7 months now of COVID time, that it's like, wow. And under normal circumstances, this would have funded. It doesn't look like it's going to fund. And it's a shame, because, it's a two-part problem. On one side, you have the backers, the consumers, who are a little crunched in their wallet, right? And then you probably have a lot of creators that have more time and are looking to make a little extra cash to pad their wallet, because it's lighter because of either their employment was downsized or gone altogether.
Right.
It's rough.
Yeah, I can think of 3 just right off the top of my head. I'm sure more that didn't fund this year that I think would have funded in a normal year. And then they were from all over the place. It wasn't just one type of Kickstarter or one funding goal. Some didn't want a lot of money. Some wanted more, without naming them.
Right.
But I mean, we've talked about this a lot. You and I talk about this a lot, because you and I are both fascinated by Kickstarter, because I mean, really, to be honest with you, I knew about you for a long time, and I followed your blog way back when, but I really started getting interested in your blog when we had a real bad spate of failed Kickstarters, right about the time of the Wandering Mage, when he came to town. Mike. Yeah. And so then I started following, because you were one of the only people online that were actually calling people out for not fulfilling Kickstarters, because for a while it was kind of the Wild West out there. And I've said this for a long time. When Kickstarter first started, all you needed was a great idea and a good line of patter, and you would get $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. I mean, with nothing written, nothing done, no history. You would just say, I'm going to do a mega dungeon based on this, and this. What do you say? And this goes all the way back to the probably one of the first big original failed Kickstarters, which was actually it didn't fail, but it was Dwimmer Mount.
Well, there are, before we even hit Dwimmer Mount, there were people like Joshua Frost, his Quantum RPG.
Quantum RPG, yeah.
And Joshua was a name that I recognized from Paizo, and I wasn't a huge Paizo fan, but I still recognized the name. And the hook was good. The hook was good, and that was probably my first or second Kickstarter I backed. And I was like, wow, this is cool. And a couple of months after it funded, he listen, I'm sure it's my son. I'll ignore it. I love you, Julie. But
all I had to do was a good line of patter. That was a good good line, and then a great idea. Boom. A great idea, good line, and you were off.
But the thing is, he funded a supplement for it, and I'm like, wait a second, I don't have the original in my hand. How is he funding a supplement for it?
Yeah,
and the supplement didn't fund. And then you had, and here's the thing. There are lines that, or spiels that you're going to get in Kickstarter updates.
Sure. That
if you learn to read between the lines, is never a good sign.
Right. And you're very good at picking those out and pointing those out in your blog too, by the way.
Yes.
Which I always think is funny because it always does kind of go to the same 2 or 3 things that if you spot this, you need to.
So in the case of Joshua, he finally admitted that. And this is something that others, the Wandering Wizard, Mike Neistel, also wound up admitting, is that he was a horrible businessman. And I believe that, if I recall right, Joshua did the same thing that Mike Neistel did, is that instead of using the Kickstarter money to actually get their product out there, right, which you think that they would do, they use it to invest in a business plan. Well, not much of a plan.
Terrible idea. But a lot of people did it. A lot of people did that. Yes.
Yeah. Let me open up an office. Let me hire a receptionist, because once I hire a receptionist, I am legit. I am good. My business, and it isn't how it works, folks. It isn't how it works.
All the other kids aren't going to laugh at me anymore because I made it, man. I'm going to have my own office and a secretary, and a mini fridge under my desk. And it's going to be awesome because they just got dumped this big check for $50,000 or whatever from Kickstarter. So they're like, you forget your original plan, which was to do this, this, and this first. That's what everybody wanted. Nobody cares about you forming your own business. No, their product.
No, I'm not backing for your business. By the way, hi, Rob. Rob Conley is watching us. Yay.
Oh, hey, Rob.
But here's the thing. When it comes to this, the OSR especially, but just RPGs in general, we had Quantum RPG, failure. Mike Neistel had 3 RPGs that were failures. Then he went to Indiegogo to do Neistel's Castle, which was to fund the business. That was a failure. He had Dwarf Con. That was a waste of money.
Yeah, Dwarf Con. Yeah.
We had...
he used Kickstarter money to pay for Dwarf Con too, by the way.
Yes.
And he lost all the money.
He lost
he lost all the money.
Because
he read. I know some people that were signed up for Dwarf Con that year. It was in Austin, and they were not too happy with what happened. So
then we had Brave Halfling with now the Brave Halfling story. But by the way, before we drop Mike Neistel finally in the end, after giving I guess I don't want to offend anybody who's listening. No. We didn't give any, but basically he gave people hand pleasures to tell you how great things were going to be, and the reality was nothing was happening. Okay, and nothing was going to happen. And then in the end, he finally said that anybody who invests money in me in a business is a fool.
We actually give thumbs up to Mr. Neistel because he one of the very few Kickstarter huge failures. I mean, what was probably about $100,000, right? I mean, it was 30.
It was Karn. It was
he had 3. He had at least 3. But he actually threw himself on his sword and said, "You know what? I'm a terrible businessman, and I lost all the money, and I'm sorry." And you'll find that is very rare. Nobody does.
It is extremely rare. That is not generally what happens. And sadly, there are people like Brave Halfling. Brave Halfling was one of the better thought of OSR publishers, although it was a well-known
Swords and Wizardry white box, which is a really good product.
Yes, he also sold the OSR themed boxes that you could order.
Those are really good quality. I actually think I have a couple still at Troubles Time. Yeah.
But the issue with Brave Halfling always was the stuff will come, but it will come late. Well, here's the issue. He's somebody who went on the stretch goal train, and I mean, it was ridiculous. I mean, I backed at $101 because it was like, wow, I'll have enough to give away copies of all these adventures to people that are part of the Taverns community. And the reality was, I never got all those copies. I don't think I got more than the first round because he promised so much, and then he started shipping, and he couldn't get it all done at once. So he was going
to ship separately, which is crazy. And that was one of the ones where I did the math on it and real quickly said, this is not going to work. And I went ahead and put $8 in there just to watch the train wreck, which went on for about 4 years. But yeah, that was one of the numbers did not work. And we were talking about this. So right before the show, we're talking about this about stretch goals. And that's something else. So we're talking about Kickstarters. If you notice now, most successful Kickstarters do not have extravagant stretch goals anymore. Right. And that used to be a really huge thing. You're not just going to get this. You're going to get all this other stuff too.
You're going to get your Tenkar's Tavern mug, but don't forget. And if we hit $10,000, I'll give you your Tenkar's Tavern patch and pencil to go along with it.
Tenkar Tavern Band-Aids. I mean everything. But
come on.
But people were treating Kickstarter now more like a pre-order than this is a special occasion. You're going to get all this extra stuff, which is a good business. That's good business because when you start promising all this extra stuff, you end up doing what happened to a lot of these people the last few years when they thought, we're going to make everybody happy. And we're going to have miniatures and T-shirts and this, and that was another warning sign.
There we go. Sorry, I had to.
And that was kind of a warning sign too. Whenever I saw a Kickstarter back in the day, was when they started cross-platform. When they said, we're going to do this adventure, but we're also going to have miniatures and T-shirts and caps, and that's when I started saying, no, now you're dealing with too many other companies. You're not just dealing with your printer anymore. Oh, we can see you, Kim.
We can see you, Kim. Welcome. Thank you.
We couldn't see her last week, and she's our biggest fan, man. We couldn't see her.
Yeah.
But no, so when you're dealing with that, you want to keep it simple, and that's what people are realizing now. Is if I don't throw all this extra stuff in, the chance I'm going to fail is much less because I'm just dealing with the printer and me, or maybe an artist or two, and that's been one of the things that I've noticed that's really helped Kickstarter in the last year or so is that these things are lean and mean, and they're not delving off into all these little branches where we're also if you get this now, it makes for a lot of people it makes Kickstarter less attractive because one of the reasons we liked backing Kickstarters was because you like to get all this extra stuff that maybe other people weren't getting.
Right.
But that's impractical. A lot of that's really impractical. I mean, it's great if you can do it, but it's very impractical in that the more complications you add to your Kickstarter, just the more chance that something's going to go wrong.
I mean, I know of one Kickstarter that was successful and mixed in miniatures and a box set, which, by the way, if you're doing an RPG, box sets are the bane. Oh, I lost Mike. I'm sure he'll come back. But box sets are the bane of an RPG Kickstarter because boxes are hard to get in the proper size and the proper amount. You got to bring them in. Boxes got to be shipped. A lot of times, if you have Swords of Wizardry white box, some of the box is kind of shitty. That one was definitely a shitty. The corners busted right away.
Great product, but terrible packaging on that one.
Yeah. But Zach Glazer, an unknown at the time, he did Whisper and Venom, an amazing box set, high quality map, Alyssa Faden.
He had miniatures. Zach's the exception to the rule. I hate to praise Zach for really anything, but I mean it's no, but he was the exception to the rule because he did a box, he did miniatures, and that's a unicorn. In this business. I mean, he did it, but I will tell you, and he probably wouldn't mind me sharing this. I don't know if Zach made any money off Whispering Venom, and he probably didn't. But it was a labor of love, absolute labor of love. He just wanted to always publish an RPG product.
Yep.
And so I don't think he made any money off of Whispering Venom or Death and Taxes, but they're just the most amazing Kickstarters because they have all this stuff that we're telling you can't do. He had miniatures, but another thing is Zach handled every aspect of this and just was very micromanaging of every part of it. A lot of these people just think that I'm going to do miniatures, and they don't think about the time. There's a lot of work to doing miniatures. You got to hire sculptors. I mean, there's all these things to do, and so when it comes time to actually do it, they're like, "Oh, I thought I just hired Mr. Miniature Man, and he just did miniatures." No, that's not how it works. Nope. You've got to pay for sculpts. Sometimes the sculpts don't come in the way you want them to, so you got to pay for more sculpts. Sculptors they're not cheap sometimes. I mean, they want to be paid what they're worth. A lot of the sculptors, and if you want good miniatures, you're going to have good sculptors. But that's just one aspect of just all kinds of crazy directions this thing can go.
Definitely. Now, here we are. We're talking about box sets. We're talking a little bit about pricing. Now, here's the thing. If you've been following RPG Kickstarters over the last, year and a half, 2 years, maybe it's close to 2 years now. Phil Reed, best known as being Steve Jackson Games' right hand.
He's the money man for Steve Jackson Games, basically. He's the one that gets to tell Steve no every once in a while when Steve just gets out of control and Steve wants to do something. He's the one that actually crunches the numbers, says we can't do that, Steve.
So he's a number cruncher, so he knows how money works, and here's what I'm talking about. He currently has a Kickstarter up for Morkborg or Merkberg. It's like, guys, you gotta talk like the Swedish chef and get it right. Merkberg. It's a very hot OSR styled RPG. I don't consider it to be OSR, but it certainly is got the feel of an OSR game. And it apparently now has a license out where you can write product for it. So he jumped on that bandwagon. He's put out some well-priced PDFs. Some of the stuff's been in print. And he's offering, I think it's a 32-page zine, full color, 2 stretch goals of 4 pages each, full color, $1 in PDF. Now, there's people out there going, well, how the fuck is he making money at $1 a PDF? Because PDF doesn't have a physical cost. And I understand, and believe me, I know publishers, and I would certainly agree if you're doing something like selling through drive-through, price per copy is certainly an issue.
Sure.
But if you are selling via Kickstarter and you're saying, all right, well, I got to raise at least $1,000, and you have a fan base. Phil's been doing this for a while. He has a fan base from Steve Jackson Games. He has a fan base he's built up with prior Kickstarters that have always been affordable. If you now, and obviously the print, if you want it in print, it's your basically even the print isn't bad. He's got a good printer that he uses that's stateside that has really high quality stuff, and I guess doesn't break his bank. But if I could sell, 20 copies at $5 or 200 copies at $1 in PDF, where am I making more money? I'm making more money at $1. And he's selling in that kind of volume. And I find it amazing. It is awesome. And he is, what I can see, the only one that has really touched upon, I don't want to call it a groundswell, but he's found that fountain. And it's like that, what was it? The flask of endless water.
Decanter of endless water.
Decanter of endless water. He has his decanter of endless water, and even if it's just a trickle, if after 24 hours it fills up a lot, right? Well, he's learned that. He's found his niche, and it's a wonderful thing to watch.
It's a very well. It's very counterintuitive, but it's really worked out great for Phil, and I'm kind of surprised because if you'd thrown that idea at me, I would have thought that's not a very good idea for Kickstarter at all. To price things that cheaply a price point, but it does work, this is Frog Out Games has started a line of Indiegogo. This is full disclosure, I'm customer service for Frog Out Games. So, but this is just a statement of facts. These are statement of facts here. We started Indiegogo campaign a couple years ago, and these are just single adventures. And they're written by some of the big names in the business, and it'll be a single. And all we want is the cost of the adventure, which is like $15. We sell the hell out of those at $15 a pop, and normally you think if you're going to do a Kickstarter, you need to really get people, you get some money there, right? You need to have like $100 Kickstarter or $60 level. Right. We've done great on the Indiegogos just doing little $15 pop. I know another guy that I know, Lloyd Metcalf. He has made a really good career out of doing these little, very affordable Kickstarters, $10, $15, sometimes even less. But yeah, because it's volume. At that point, it's just volume. Right. And then it's also, if you're only doing one thing and you're only doing, you don't have all these extra moving parts, you can afford to only charge $1 or $5 or $10 and actually make money. Now, you still have to sell a lot. I mean, you can't not sell. You can't, have a $5 Kickstarter and sell 10 of them. Right. That's not going to work out. You still have to sell a lot. So you still have to do all the work involved, all the pimping of your product. But if it comes together, man, it's a beautiful thing because you've just basically screwed the system, right? I mean, right. You did your own thing. You said, well, I'm only going to charge this much. I'm trusting myself to be able to sell this many, and then you do it.
I was talking with Phil probably a year ago at Game Hall, and we were talking about my retirement, and he was talking about his future retirement at some point. And part of his future retirement plan was to have Kickstarter be a viable supplement to his income. And I would say, from what I've observed, he's hit that right on the mark. And God bless him for doing so, because it's not an easy mark to hit. And right. This is something that really very few people, no matter who you are going to come out of the box like a racehorse and get first prize. I'll tell you, you're not even going to place. All right, you're not going to be part of anybody's trifecta. All right, but you start small. You earn a rep, and you have to earn that rep not just on Kickstarter, but generally speaking on social media and otherwise, because if you do your Kickstarter successfully, if you offer a product that is value for the dollar spent, you will get people coming back and they will spread that word. Again, one of the probably better known in the OSR failed to fund Kickstarters was, I hate to say it, Frank Metzner's Kickstarter, because he had high plans for it. And I'll be honest with you, if it had kickstarted 3 or 4 years prior, if it had kickstarted in the era of Dwimmermount, one of the premier funded and almost never fulfilled Kickstarters, it would have probably funded. Maybe, I don't know. It had a high goal.
Back then, Frank was still a name, and it was a great it's still a great idea.
Yes.
And that's back when Kickstarter was being run by people with just great ideas and nothing else. And that's pretty much what Frank had. I mean, he had 30 years of material, but he didn't have anything in printable shape or form. And right. That's the money for the Kickstarter was. Problem is, the way Kickstarters are now, buyers demand that you have something done. They're just, people just aren't backing Kickstarters with nothing to see. No artwork, no maps, no actual writing. It's just not being done anymore. You just can't do a Kickstarter like that. As a matter of fact, for a lot of people, if you don't actually have a finished product in hand, they won't back your Kickstarter. If you don't have it absolutely finished, except for we just need the money to basically print it and get a few things done here, cross some T's, dot some I's, and then we're done. It's very hard to fund a Kickstarter nowadays with nothing but a wing and a prayer. And that's unfortunately what Frank was trying to do with his
right. I mean, Empira, I think that's what this was called, was a good concept, but after people had already been screwed on things like City State, the Invincible Overlord, nearly horribly screwed on Dwimmermount, Mike Nystol, and I'm missing something else in this, aren't I? Well, anything that my good friend Ken Whitman put out.
Or Skarka. Skarka's always good for a failed Kickstarter or two there. But yeah, that's the deal. And that unfortunately, I remember when Zach was doing Whispering Venom, one of the things he told me was that the recent Kickstarter failures, he felt like that probably cost him several $1,000s.
Yep.
Because people get once burned, they're twice shy. They don't want to back him anymore. And I've heard a lot of people say I don't back Kickstarters anymore because I backed too many that failed. And yes, and part of that's probably your fault. I mean, if you're not doing the research and you're just willy-nilly backing Kickstarters, you're going to have a few bad apples in there. If you pay attention, I don't think I've ever backed one that didn't fail, except for maybe the Blair Halfling, but I knew that was going to fail, so it was kind of a weird situation. I was looking for the train wreck there, but no, but and so it hurts people now, but it also helps in a way because you have to have a much better idea of what you're doing now. You can't just throw something out there and then hope that inspiration is going to strike you when that check for 50 grand comes through. You actually have to have a plan and have to have something done. So in a way, it hurts people because yes, there's a lot of people that will no longer back Kickstarter because they've been burned too much. But I think it also helps you because it makes you commit more to your product and try to have a plan. Now some still slip through. I don't know how long ago City State was. That might have been. That wasn't too long ago, was it?
No, City State was on the cusp of the time frame
Right.
where. I mean, listen, I'll be honest with you. When it came to like Brave Halfling, I went off the idea of, really, how bad could it be?
Mm-hmm.
And listen, there were personal issues going on where there was loss of employment, stillborn child. I mean, God, he went through a hell of a lot. But then again, you have people like.
But see, my whole thing is with that is. You have to take that into account. I mean, things happen.
No, you do.
I mean, we've all had. I mean, I remember my dad dying in the hospital, and I was in the waiting room with a laptop working because I had to work. I couldn't say, I can't ship any packages because my dad's in the hospital dying. Everybody's got issues. Everybody's got problems.
Yeah.
Everybody has things in their life. So I know people like to throw that stuff out there, but I'm very. I mean, maybe I'm not as compassionate as some, but you just need to get things done. I think Gareth Skarkas had every animal that his family's ever owned died in the last 5 years, and
he's had con crud that was worse than my congestive heart failure.
But at a certain point, okay, you guys got to work around it. I mean, I'm sorry. I feel bad for you. I mean, you can have catastrophic things happen to you. I realize that. I mean. Yes, if a tornado hits your house and blows it away, and your computer was in there and all your stuff, you know what? I'm probably gonna cut you some leeway because that's just devastating.
Right, but
if you've been sick, but if you've been sick, I mean, everybody's sick. Everybody's got issues.
Well, how about what was it? Was it Might and Magic? I printed all these books. They're in my living room. But I have no money to ship them because shipping costs went up.
That's actually happened to Rob Kuntz too. And yes, Rob Kuntz printed out Bottle City and then had no money to ship it. So they sat in his front room collecting cigarette smoke for about 6 months until some very kind-hearted white knights came and paid for shipping. But yeah, that is a very common problem too. That oops, there's no more money left. Oh well, that was Myth and Magic, the one you're thinking of. That Myth and Magic guy. Yeah, he printed up all the books and then couldn't ship.
There you go.
So just
that's the one where I actually got my copy mailed to me. Was I a vocal person on the blog and on the Kickstarter comments? Yes. And I got my copy. This is after the individual in question shared my shipping info as a comment on the Kickstarter as his way to out me. It was the one time I actually had to reach out to customer service at Kickstarter over the weekend, and they actually took it down.
Yeah, that's a no-no. Yeah.
But I actually opened it up with the package when it came in my backyard with a knife, cutting open the shipping envelope because I was like, you know what? If there's ever going to be anthrax in the mail aimed at me,
you wait for the white powder to fall out. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the time. And I'll be honest with you. I mean, it's a good book. This would have been a successful OSR RPG.
It was a 2E retro clone, correct?
Yes.
We had the book. Well, actually, we got a few copies too because Doug actually backed that at the highest level.
Like 10 copies. If you got
which
4.
But we think we got 4 or 5. Yeah, we got 4. And it also was supposed to have something like, I think his picture was supposed to be in the. There was all these extra things that were supposed to be included that we didn't get. So, but yeah, it was a nice book. The book was very well made.
Then you have the Game Master's Guide, which I'm not even sure that was ever printed. I don't think it was.
I thought we had one, but the more I think about it, I don't think we ever got that. I thought we had one, but no.
Yeah, that was another shit show. And then you have things like Ernie Gygax and Benoit, who again health issues sidetracked that, but they did something that everybody else we've spoken about did not do this, and that includes Dwimmer Mount, where money that went to the creator did not actually get to the publisher. And I'm going to tell you right now, the publisher was fucking retarded for that game plan. I mean, that's my personal opinion, and I stand behind it. But when it came to Ernie and Benoit, they did something that nobody else did here. They took the money from the Kickstarter, they put it in a business savings account and let the money sit and only used it for expenses related to the Kickstarter.
And there were a lot of people that swore to me up and down that money was gone. Oh, that's never going to come out. That money's gone. Yeah. And I said, I have heard from Benoit and Ernie that money's in an account. No. That's all spent. You take it from me, it's spent. Well, guess what? They were all wrong.
They were all wrong. And I know that because my first GaryCon, Ernie was like, you're here. Great. We got to sit down and talk. We sat down and talked because I want to show you something. I go, what? He goes, I have the statement I want to show you from like 3 months prior from the save account for the project. And I was like, the memorial tomb. I'm like, Ernie, I don't need to see it. He goes, no, you need to see it. I'm like, okay. Because now somebody asks, you can say the money is there. I saw the money. It's important that people know that it's there. And I saw the statement and the money was there. And I'll tell you something else. The only reason why Troll Lord Games was able to come in and move this project along, because honestly, it was a project that overwhelmed the two of them, and that's why it had slowed to a crawl, because the money was still there. Nobody can come in and save something like, I don't know, the city-state of the Invincible Overlord, because the money is pissed away. Nobody's going to come in and save Far West because Gareth has already spent that money on fucking living expenses. The money is gone. How do we know the money is gone? Because when people were asking for refunds 2 or 3 years ago, he was like, well, I can refund you the money for the print book, but I got to deduct the money for the PDF. Dude, if you're telling somebody to no longer a fucking backer and go take a no, you give all the money back. But that's how tight he was. And then he stopped. I can't afford to give back any more monies because you spent it all. All right. Can I say that with absolute surety? No. Would I bet a year's pension on it? Without a boom, here, I'll give you 2 years of my pension.
Yeah.
Because it's I can personally guarantee that that's what happened to it, and that's why. And that's another thing that when it comes to Kickstarters, the ones that go long in the tooth without fulfilling, the ones that fund it and go long in the tooth, they risk having that money spent otherwise, because especially when you mingle that money into your regular funds, again, what did Benoit and Ernie do? Put it into a separate business account, not going to touch it. It's only for the Kickstarter. What do most people do when they're doing a Kickstarter?
Just go straight in their bank account, and it's mingled with the rest of their money.
Yep.
And so then everything gets confused, and they have a payment on their car. Well, I'm just going to take it out of the money here, and then boom, boom, boom. 2 years later, they look and there's no more money in the account.
I'm going to pay myself. I mean, one of the issues with the State of the Invincible Overlord Kickstarter was that the money was spent otherwise. I got that from somebody who will no longer talk with me, because it was one thing when he felt that he needed to talk about how the Kickstarter that his name was on but was being mismanaged by his son. Well, it was one thing, but then when he did his own stupid shit, then it became, I'm not going to talk to you.
Right.
But here's the thing. Bob III was the one in charge of the project, and Bob III needed was eye-opening to me. The Kickstarter spent all its money trying to fulfill the miniatures. Okay. Not great idea, but whatever. But he needed a layout artist to get out the game. Oh, and by the way, as this thing, here's the other problem when things go wrong. Shipping goes up, and sometimes the game system that you're working off of becomes obsolete, like Pathfinder.
Yeah,
so
that's happened to a lot of Kickstarters that have sat around the last 3 years that had an option for Pathfinder. That now are so that I know City State had that problem because City State promised a Pathfinder version. Well, guess what? What are you going to do now? There's Pathfinder 1 version, which nobody, it's not a supported version, or you're going to do Pathfinder 2. But wait a second, I paid for Pathfinder 1. It's a mess at this point. If you promise a Pathfinder version, it's a mess. It's a huge mess. Yeah.
So, the younger Bob asked money from the parent company, Judges Guild, to hire a layout artist, and then decided to teach themselves the layout, to not pay somebody to do the layout, to pay themselves to do the layout. And here we are years later, and we still got jack shit to show for it. Am I bitter? Not in the least, because I'll be honest with you. I hate to say it, there is some entertainment value in this. I have a right to be angry and bitch because I invested money in this project. I was told I did not have a right to be angry and bitch about Ken Whitman, but I saw this warning sign for Ken right from the start. So
in people's defense, a lot of people got taken by Ken, not once, but twice. And I mean, Jolly's one of the nicest guys in the business, and he got absolutely taken by him. So he's got, he's one of those guys that he's got close to an 18 charisma, I would have to think, because he can talk people into things that a normal person you'd never have a chance of doing. Ever.
Here, if I was going to do Ken Whitman, Ken Vittman, because I'm not talking about the real person. But if I was going to do Ken Vittman in game terms, he would have a special ability of Charm Person, and you'd have a -40 to save. However, once that charm wears off, his charisma becomes like a natural 3.
It drops all the way
to that person. So you go from like loving the guy to, I'm going to kill the mother effer. I was going to tell you, one Kickstarter that we didn't talk about that Jason Zavoda mentioned, which was I was actually very intimately involved with different areas. This was the Center Stage Miniatures Kickstarter, which was a huge failure. Chuck says right. We do really well with Pathfinder 1 products.
even though it's not being supported by Paizo, it is a very viable system, and the fans are extremely loyal to the system. So yes. We will publish Pathfinder products as long as they're purchased, and they are purchased they're purchased very well. So yes, it's still a very viable system for us. I mean, I guess Paizo didn't think so, but oh well. Paizo's got their own issues now. But anyway, Center Stage Miniatures, that was one of the cases that was a huge money sink for a lot of people. I know a lot of people that invested hundreds of dollars in that and they never got anything. It eventually declared bankruptcy, and I believe Bill Barsh of Pacesetter Games took over the assets of the company, purchased them in bankruptcy court. And he tried to make some. Yeah, we need to get Bill on here. Bill or Ben. Bill and Ben has said he wants to be on here, so we're definitely gotta get Ben. Yeah, he's not doing anything. I mean, he's a kid.
Yeah,
he hates to be called a kid. Hates to be called a kid, but I'm gonna call him a kid.
Best hair in the OSR.
Oh, by far. Everybody, I mean, look at this and look at what Ben's got going. I mean, come on, man. Oh yeah. Oh, I got a haircut. By the way, I got a haircut the other day too. So I did my usual, just cut it all off haircut now that I'm old.
Right. Well, so world of COVID, but hey,
I'm going to the beach, man. I'm not gonna worry about haircuts for a month. I'm not worried about anything for a month except this show. I will be here next week.
There you go. All right.
So, internet goes everywhere. I heard it goes, even down to the beach. So we'll see what it gets. No, but Center Stage, I would say what their problem was, they had a Ponzi scheme going because he basically did really well on the first Kickstarter. But we found out later when we kind of looked at the books, he'd overspent on sculpting and a few other things. And even though he made a lot of money on the first Kickstarter, the Tome of Horrors Monsters, he basically pretty much broke even, and maybe was even a little bit in the hole. So he started another Kickstarter to help pay for the first Kickstarter. Unfortunately, that one didn't do as well as the first Kickstarter, so then he was even a little more in the hole. So guess what you do at that point? You start a third Kickstarter to pay for the first two Kickstarters. And by the time the third Kickstarter came around, it was a mess. And a lot of people were out a lot of money, and a lot of those miniatures never came out. I mean, a lot of sculptors didn't get paid to the point where the person who ran Center Stage Miniatures is no longer in the gaming community at all. Period. I mean, left. Yeah, basically, he asked Doug and I at one point if he could ever come to North Texas, and again, because he'd been in North Texas. We said, yes, but we're not going to protect you. I mean, because he said, well, can I come to North Texas and you can tell people to leave me alone and stuff? We're like, we can't do that. I mean, there's people my brother was in for $400, never got his stuff. I said, if my brother wants to come to you and ask you where his $400 is, that's between you and him. We can't stop that. And so he no longer attends conventions or is involved in anything in the gaming community. I mean, so it basically, some of these Kickstarters, when they go bad, they're out. I mean, that's it. That's their one shot. And they're even people that have been established in the community, because that they've done up until then, they're golden. But once they have the bad Kickstarter, well, then now if you go to conventions, people are going to start confronting you. I mean, that's why you're never going to see Ken Whitman anywhere anymore. I always think it's funny. People say, "Oh, Ken Whitman's rumored to go to GaryCon this year." No, he's not going anywhere. He would be swarmed, and not as a good celebrity either. I mean, this isn't, like Donny Osmond in the 70s swarmed. No, this is bad stuff. This would be bad for him to show up at a convention. So we won't see his face anywhere, probably for a long time, until he thinks people forget. Well, Chuck said he was in for 200 too on the on that. Yeah, but Bill did try to make good on those. I think he gave everybody a discount based on how much money they were in the hole. So, for instance, my brother ended up getting $400 worth of PDFs, I believe, from Pacesetter, because he was $400 in the hole, which was something Bill didn't have to do. That was very nice of him. But yeah, that was a big seismic shift in the community in terms of miniature Kickstarters.
Yeah, I mean, because the miniatures were high quality.
Oh yeah, and all you see now, I mean, really, when you think about miniature Kickstarters, you have Reaper, and you have Dwarven Forge, and then you have Tom Tullis's Dragon Lock, and that's really about it. You got those three companies that do miniature stuff, and really you don't see a lot of other miniature Kickstarters, because it's hard to do a miniature Kickstarter well and not screw up unless you have a system in place and you know exactly what you're doing.
And a lot of people are Come on, CMON. I forgot about them. You're right.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh,
But
come on. Wait,
yeah.
didn't come on. What was their Hate? Was their game? Was their game Hate? I remember they had a game called Hate. I can't remember the other ones. They had a few Kickstarters. I can't remember now. I have to look.
Yeah, I have one or two of their board games, not to play them, but just to have minis that I'll never fucking use. Which I hate to say. But now, I mean, the other thing too is that now when you see miniatures being kickstarted, what are you seeing? You're seeing the files to print them at home.
Sure, yeah, on your own 3D printing machine,
right?
So, yeah.
And I'll admit that I have gone to Humble Bundle and gone, oh my, look at this, hey, 3D file. I don't have a 3D printer, by the way. And I am not getting one anytime within the next 12 months. But at the point when you see them at really cheap prices, you're like, at some point, I could probably use this. I'll drop $15 now and maybe print it in 2 years. Who the hell knows? We'll see.
And that's what the funny thing I think about Reaper's Kickstarter is there. God, how many? There must be 500,000 people out there with 2 million Reaper miniatures they're never going to paint. But the prices were so good. We're talking about, pricing being a key here. Prices were so good on those that you just couldn't pass it up. And so many people I know that don't even paint miniatures got multiple sets just because they couldn't pass up the prices. They're like, well, if there's even a tiny chance someday I'm going to paint these, I'm going to go ahead and get them now.
Yeah, I had a ton of bones. I think I backed the first 3 or 4 rounds of bones minis, and then that was it. I was done.
Yeah,
I just can't do it, man. Because I don't use them. I don't even when I was gaming in person out in Long Island, we gamed every other Thursday. I was probably I would bring one mini with me, and either I was rolling with my cleric or I was rolling with my dwarf. And then when I was rolling with my dwarf, just so you all know, there actually is a Tenkar miniature out there. Darcy out in New Zealand did it. I actually got a professionally painted version of it. It's awesomely amazing. But I do theater of the mind. I don't even use, was it Pogs or when I'm doing the VTT. I don't use any fake miniatures because it's all theater of the mind. I'll use a map and point on it. It's just how I roll.
I'm a big mini guy, man. Sorry. I mean, and I even use the plastic ones because I think their monsters are incredible. They do some really good monsters that you I had some right over here. I'd probably I don't feel like reaching out of the camera. But no, that some of the old WotC ones and even some of the Paizo ones are just really, really good miniatures. But we still use good old lead. I have a bunch of painted lead from the 80s, and I got probably 2 or 3 boxes. So
I've got some. Yeah, I have some painted lead and I have some painted plastic skeletons from Games Workshop. Mm-hmm. So I remember you could buy them in quasi bulk. I guess it was meant to be used with the Warhammer battle game. So Rob is telling us you can upload your files and get it printed through some of these houses that will print your files for you. And I figured if I'm going to actually do print on demand at some point, I'll get a 3D printer. I've been told though by people that have 3D printers not to get involved in the hobby. It's a time sink. It's a money sink.
It's like having a boat. You get a boat because you're gonna get chicks with it, and then nobody tells you that to fill up with gas is $100 every weekend, and then you got then you have maintenance and you got storage.
Yep.
And before you know it, So the best thing about a boat is you find a friend that has a boat. And somebody told me this once. One of the best advices I've ever heard about a boat. Don't get a boat, but find a friend that has a boat and offer to fill up his tank. Because they said it's only going to cost you $100, but you get all the benefits of a boat. And the guy who has the boat is still going to have to pay all the storage costs and maintenance costs. And you're only out $100 a week, and you still get all it's of riding on the boat with him. And that was one of the best pieces of advice I've ever heard about a boat.
Oh yeah, and he's saving the $100 a week. So
it's
there you go.
Money sick, and that's the same thing with 3D printers, man. Once you get hooked in that, it's just something else to spend your money on.
UV really hardening printer minis.
Oh, there you go,
Chuck. I don't even want to know. It's a rabbit hole that just sounds too far, too deep. No.
Wait a second. Chuck doesn't make enough money at Frog God to be buying any UV hardening printers. I want to know what's going on with this thing.
Well, you have that handheld UV light, it's like, kill the coronavirus, clear off your phone, and harden your minis.
Harden your minis at the same time.
Harden
your minis to kill the coronavirus. Yeah, I would actually somebody put up there that there's actually a lot of miniature Kickstarters going on. If somebody wants to email me or talk to me on Facebook, I'd like to know who some of them are, because I don't know a lot of successful ones beyond the ones we mentioned. I would like to give some people some props if they've been able to put out some really successful Kickstarters with minis, because I know that's tough. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of people that do it, so I would definitely like to know more about that. And speaking of that too, if anybody has an idea for a show or a topic you want us to discuss, let us know, because as you know by listening to our shows, we go anywhere and everywhere. We may start talking about hamburgers and we finish up the night talking about filet mignon. You just never know where we're going to go or what we're going to talk about. So yeah,
or Taco Bell.
Or Taco Bell, depending if we want to clean out our insides before the next show.
No, that would be White Castle for those of you on the East Coast.
Yeah. I miss. That's one thing. Driving up to Gen Con a couple years, we would always stop at the White Castle up there. I miss and then going up to Wisconsin, every once in a while we hit a White Castle, but that's an experience, because it's one of those things where you get them, you're like, these are so good, but then you have it twice, and that's too much. Like, I had it twice in a week. No, that's
no, you can't. No. You know what you got to do? If you're going to do White Castles, all right, and this is the secret, and then you'll be good for like a season. You get 10 cheeseburgers. You get fries with dipping cheese, and you get a 6-pack of not too heavy beer. You watch some football, you eat it, you're gonna pass out at the end. And then, you know what? It's almost like a 0-calorie deal, because you'll clear it all out within the hours.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
And then you'll be like, I'm never going to do that again. Not going to do that again.
A year later, you're there. The thing about the White Castle ones, they're so great about the burgers is they're just little munchies, but you got to have them hot, because I want to say that one time my wife and I went through Illinois or somewhere up there. We bought some White Castle, and she's like, out. She's like, oh, these are nasty. And we bought like 20 of them or something crazy, and I eat like half of them because I'm a big dude. Right. And then we refrigerated the next day. We took them out. We're like, these are gross. They were all congealed. And just like, how do you can't, if they're not hot, you can't get them back to that state.
You can buy them frozen in the frozen section, at least out here. And they nuke up pretty well. You don't want to over nuke them, because then they get the bread gets a little crusty. But otherwise, of course, now that I'm eating healthy, I haven't indulged in that.
You're not doing White Castle.
No. But
so just to keep me honest, I want you to know. So I'm leaving. I'm going out of town for a month, although I'll still be online. We just have to have, my wife and I have to get out of town. We have to get out of the house. We've been locked up since March. It's just, forget it. And I'm going to make it a personal effort. I'm gonna get below 300 pounds. So I'm coming out here. So I want everybody to hold me to it. You're allowed to ask me and shame me if I come every week. I want to hear questions about how much I weigh now, because we're gonna do a lot of exercising, a lot of healthy eating. Hopefully being away from my haunts and my usual hamburger places and all the taco places I have up here. Hopefully being in the new territory, I won't be tempted. There is a Whataburger on South Potch Allen. We're actually pretty close to the condos we're at too, unfortunately. But I'm going to try to stay away from that.
Well, here, Mike. I'm going to throw some ideas at you. Try to get a 20 or 30-minute walk-in daily. That's
already planned. We got a walk in the morning and a walk in the afternoon. We're going to do that every day.
I'm not saying don't do Whataburger once a week. Don't do the fries.
That's a great idea. And you know what? That's great that you said that, because you know what? Who gave me that advice was my grandson, because my grandson he had a part-time job at Whataburger the last few months, and he said the same thing. He said, "Papa, look at the calories on the burger and the fries. You're doubling up, and you're only getting fries." And I was like, "You're right." And so I have been foregoing fries. Oh, hey, Chuck said he's got 25 pounds loss. Nice. Yeah. See, everybody's going to tell me how much weight they've lost. Here we go. And I'm going to have to sit here as fat as a hog and listen to everybody brag about their workout programs. But no, that's good. Yeah, keep me honest, because so when I go on the show next week, Eric, I want you to beat me down and ask me how much.
No, because beating you down doesn't.
No, I know. No, you wouldn't do that anyway. So
no, and besides which, listen, we're all in this together, man. This is.
And I have been tuning into your podcast with your wife, your health cast. I think that's you have some very informative stuff on there, and I've actually got some good advice from our buddy Laramie, who's also
Laramie is awesome, man. He did a great stand-in.
He's doing really good. He's lost quite a bit of weight, and he had some really good advice. So I'm open for advice and open for encouragement. And yeah, good job, Chuck. That's good there. Chuck and I are both diabetic, so yeah, we got to watch our weight.
Hey, all three of us.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you just joined the crowd too.
Yeah, I'm on Jardiance right now. I'm off the insulin. I'm on Jardiance, which is a pill in the morning.
Well, it's funny because you go to conventions now, and I ran out of the last time I went to I think Gary Con, very stupidly ran out of insulin while I was there, and I normally would just go to Walmart and purchase it, but for some reason couldn't go that day, and I couldn't believe how many gamers I knew had or diabetic. I mean, it really is an epidemic now, and sadly enough. But yeah, I remember Ian McGarty, Steve Getty, all these guys like, yeah, you need some insulin. I was like, I didn't know everybody was diabetic. Like, oh man, there's a lot of diabetic gamers, which probably different show for a different time. We need to talk about health and gaming, but we'll cross over with your podcast on health and gaming. But so anyway, that was a long digression. Chuck, your A1C was better than mine. Mine was almost a 9. That's very good. 7.
Well, yeah, mine was 9.2 when I was in the hospital back in May. Now it's down to 6.0.
That's excellent, man. Yeah, I need to get mine. Well, COVID hasn't been kind to anybody, and I haven't been in a gym since COVID started. So that's. And I'm not going to blame just COVID. That's just me too. But yeah, that's really put a number. A lot of my friends that I've talked to have gained a lot of weight over the past few months. I'm sorry to digress there. Were we talking about something else? And I just spun off into talking.
Well, we started talking about White Castles and vacations.
White Castle, which came out. See, that's what I'm saying is we can start talking about one thing, and we're 5 minutes later we're talking about something else. So that's.
Well, it's a good segue because I'm going to just throw this out because earlier tonight on the blog side, I mentioned that. Listen, we're going to talk about the elephant in the room for all of 5 seconds. Today is the day after Election Day here in the United States, and all the drama leading up to the election is going to lead to all the drama leading after the election.
It's over. Oh, it's not really over. Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, we got this. Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? It's the perfect time to work on a new campaign. And as such, I am going to map out a small sandbox, whether I find a computer program that I can do it with, whether I do it by hand, but map out a small sandbox, use some resources, like, if I can get this thing to show up without, it's disappearing. The Tome of Adventure Design by Matt Finch.
Great book. Man, that is a excellent book. One of our best sellers for our games. Yep. To this day, it's been out for years.
Well worth it.
Oh, it's a great book.
The D30 Sandbox Companion. Great stuff.
Richard LeBlanc are really good. He did the oh gosh, I can't remember the name. The DM. I'll look it up real quick. You vamp and I'll look up. Richard LeBlanc did some really good sandbox.
It's Sandbox Companion and the D30 GM Companion.
That's it. Yeah, they're both really good.
Toolbox. They're awesome products. Yeah. You can get them on Drive-Thru RPG, I believe. Definitely in PDF, possibly in print on demand. They are awesome references to get.
Die 30 DM Companion, Die 30 Sandbox Companion. They're AX1, X2. Highly recommended. If you play
OSR, it is perfect. And I'm going to use, I believe it's Red Tide from, was it Sinamine? Same individual who is behind Stars Without Number. Yeah, because these are things that build campaigns. Because what I want to do is that by the end of the year, so I'm giving myself just under 2 months, have a campaign ready to go with some adventure hooks, some short adventures written out, and have it be something that's written to be drop in, drop out, episodic. So you run 2 or 3 sessions, you reach a point where you can drop, stop it, and then players can swap in, swap out. So you're not stuck. Some people, can't commit to a long time. That's fine. And figure I'll work on it on the blog, use some of the material in Torchlight, which, yes, Torchlight next issue will come out, God willing, before the year is out. I'd like to say sooner, but God only knows.
Yeah, I hope so. I got an article in there
yes,
somewhere.
You do, man.
Yeah.
You do. As says,
I promised all my relatives, my dear poor mother, that she could see me published, and she might
see you in print.
She could see me in print. So it was worth it all those days playing D&D around the kitchen table.
It wasn't.
I can't wait for that check, man. You got that big check coming to you.
Yeah, that big check, dude.
Oh, that's gonna be sweet.
It's funny because all the monies I earned through Drive-Thru RPG either goes to buy product that gets used, or it goes back to the community with giveaways. We have OSR Christmas coming up.
Oh yes, that every year. Look forward to that, and I always feel bad because I really can't win anything, and I don't want to win anything.
But you probably have it all.
I have most of it, but it's so exciting to see all the cool stuff you got. So yes, why don't you talk about OSR Christmas for a second? I love that. I forgot all about that.
Yeah, I don't know how many years we've been doing OSR Christmas. It was just on a whim years ago, and Rich LeBlanc put together the graphic for OSR Christmas, and it literally went on fire. I did learn, though, early on that having people send me physical products for me to then send it back out is the easiest way for me to fuck things up. Okay, I will fall on that sword multiple times because it just doesn't work. So, but what I generally do, and I'll give away obviously some copies of the products I have in PDF, but and for statewide, I will give away some copies of Continual Light in print if it's to US, maybe even a Canadian address. I got to check because I can send it through Amazon and have it arrive. The printing won't kill me, but I'll also be giving away Drive-Thru RPG gift certificates, and that'll be to people that read the blog, people that watch on YouTube, people that follow the podcast, people that subscribe to the Tavern's newsletter, because this is your money. This is money that the affiliate sales have brought in, and why shouldn't I give it back to community? And also other publishers will donate stuff. We're going to have more patches from Thaddeus. He will mail them anywhere in the world. So if you are listening to this or watching this in, I don't know, Monaco, Iran, Gambia,
all our Gambian fans.
Maybe not the People's Republic of China.
Gambian fans, yes.
Yes. But if you're out there enjoying this, and actually, when it comes to the podcast, I am surprised that we have when I say significant, a measurable number of listeners in the Mideast. I would assume that it is people that are out there in the oil industry or serving in the military forces. But I do love looking at that on the podcast record and going, holy crap, we have people that listen in Dubai.
I'm shocked when you say we have more than a dozen downloads for podcasts, which we have way more than that. So
yes,
that to me is absolutely shocking that more than 10 people want to hear us talk about anything without drinking heavily beforehand. So I'm grateful. We're grateful for those people too.
Actually, we have a good number of people. The United States is great. New Jersey, if you actually want, Bob, if you ping me via email at tenkars.tavern@gmail.com. and say, hey, I'd like to know where our listeners are in New Jersey, I'll actually get a download of that and let you see where people listen to this podcast in New Jersey. Be like, I can get that information out of Anchor. So it does. It's like when you go through, vast majority though, USA, Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand, of course, the English-speaking countries. And we actually do pretty well in Brazil. So
Brazil, you don't underestimate Brazil gaming population. One of the really sad things about Brazil is they have a terrible mail service because we get a lot of requests, Frog God and then myself also, to mail stuff there. I have mailed a lot of Legion packets to Brazil. Sadly, only about half of them reached their destination because they had just an absolute.
Oh God, yeah, I've
but
seen
yeah,
that.
we have Brazil's got a very burgeoning RPG population there. They've got a ton of people that want to play games.
Hey, Mike, we got a hi from David in the UK. So.
Hey, David. Hey, well, there you go. We're international. We're international now. Damn, that's awesome.
So you see, Bob G met me at ShireCon. No, and there was no ShireCon this year. And
I know.
And ShireCon this year was going to be the year that Rach and I actually went up for a weekend. We were going to, get a hotel or bed and breakfast within 10, 15 miles of the location, spend a night or two, enjoy the area, and it just didn't happen.
I'm really still sad about missing Lloyd's AppleCon this year. And we had Lloyd on a few weeks ago, and we talked about that a bit, and that really just stinks because he did such a good job the first year. I was really looking forward to going this year, and so we'll just have to wait for 2021, and hopefully things will get better, and we can actually go to cons again, which would be wonderful. Speaking of cons, by the way, let me throw this in. We're Long Con, which is about their third or fourth year. They have a couple buddies of ours have a con in Longview, Texas, which is about 2 hours east of Dallas, and they're still having their con this year. But it's much like our con was this year in North Texas. It's just come if you want to come. So they're expecting maybe 30, 40 people. It's just going to be small. But I know Doug's going, and Chris Clark's going, and Diesel LaForge is going.
Okay.
So that's that. So I would like to go. I will be on the beach, and I am contemplating driving up for that weekend. It's a long drive, but I may do it just to see my buddies. But yeah, we probably could do a show at 1.2 also about. I'm really interested in cons in the era of COVID. I think it's one of those stories that's going to take a couple years so we can get the full picture of it. But I think it's really interesting what's happening with cons and COVID and how a lot of them moved online, and it seemed to do really well for a while, but it just seems to me that the interest has fallen off a lot. Now, I know that there was virtual Gamehole Con last weekend, and I did not attend. If anybody that attended would like to talk about that, that'd be, email or contact us, because I'd be interested. I'll talk to Alex and see how attendance was. I owe Alex an email anyway. But yeah, that's really interesting. So there are still cons going on, but I think unless you're a small con, I don't think your chances of pulling it off are very well.
Mike, when is Long Con? Do you remember which weekend?
It is the 14th, the weekend of the 14th. So that's 2 weeks or week. Yeah, 2 weeks. 2 weeks from this weekend, or week of this weekend. Oh, God,
it's a week and a half from now.
Yeah, week and a half. And but yeah, it's there'll be several. Like I said, Doug will be there. A couple of guests, but it's gonna be very small. It's all holiday in there. We actually had Long Con there last year. Was really nice. Nice little holiday Inn right in Longview, Texas. Longview, Texas is kind of a small town, but it's a college town. Lots of places to eat, lots of barbecue places. With the current COVID situation, I don't know what's going to be open or what's not open. But I'm sure they're going to be much like our con. We had about 80 people. We had no transmission cases. Everybody wore masks. We had distancing. It was very well done. These guys, Eddie and Matt, I'm sure they're going to do the same thing. They'll be distancing. There'll be masks. Matter of fact, I know there's going to be masks because we have donated masks to the con. So there's going to be special Long Con face masks there. So,
ooh, now is there going if there are leftovers, can people buy them afterwards?
I don't know. We'll have to see. I don't know.
I mean, think about it. People will, if these are reusable cloth face masks, I think you could actually.
We've got some nice. Let me see if I got one here. We had some really nice. Well, here's actually one my wife made. This is out of an old dice bag. And
really?
She made one. But here's the ones we had. No, here's the ones we had this year. We had some this year, with the Diesel LaForce logo on them. So that's what the ones look like this year. And go over the head.
Dude, if there are extras, man, you should be.
There might be a couple extra. We may. Well, I think Doug had first promised them to some people who wanted to make it, couldn't make it, and still helped us out financially. But yeah, when all that's done, and we need to see if there's any left over, we may probably help the con out by selling some of those.
Yeah,
as Chuck said, masks are the new con swag. I agree. I've seen some really nice masks out there. Seen some very nice masks.
Frog God should be doing some.
Kim said the virtual game hole is this weekend. Okay, I thought it was last weekend. Kim, you're saying it's this weekend coming up. Okay. Oh, that's right.
That makes sense because last year was
first weekend in November. You're right. Okay, so we'll know after this weekend how virtual game hole did. I hope it does well for Alex and the Mistake. I know Alex was just really torn up to have to cancel the con this year. But yeah, you just can't have any large gatherings like that at this point. Unfortunately, but that's just, if Game Hole was only 50 people, that'd be great, but it's not. It's a huge con, and because they a lot of people like Game Hole. A lot of people have come the last year, so they're having to they're having to worry about the safety of quite a few people, not just 50 or 60 idiots.
Yeah.
And Alex has a lot of families there. There's a lot of families that go to Game Hole.
Oh God, yeah, I've noticed that. Because you have your table. And you'd be like, hey, they all came together. And it's not just families. The gaming groups come together. And you're like, wow, you guys game at home and you're in my game next. And by the way, there's nothing more intimidating as a GM than to go to, you're running something at a convention game table and 40 or 6 players game together at home. Just like, oh shit.
I was going to ask you something too. So you were talking about starting this new campaign up.
Yeah.
Are you thinking about doing anything online that people can just join in? Is this going to be?
That's the whole idea. I mean, now the first invite to go out to people that we had. Frog God had its game day back in September.
Yep.
And had a good group. And I was hoping to kick something off by the end of October, but it didn't happen. But I'd like to get something, give them the first invite. But the idea of this is that, again, I'd like it to be episodic. When I say episodic, think about dramas, late night dramas back in the 80s and 90s, where you had like an episode or two that was connected. And then, then you could put any episode after that and it would still be the same.
Sure.
It doesn't, I'm not looking to where, oh my God, half the group can't make it. The story comes to a crashing halt. So we don't want that. So, in a way, I wanted to play a bit like how I see DCC RPG, which is you run an adventure, the party breaks, you come back, it's the next adventure. What happened in between? It isn't. There might be overarching campaign deals. I'd certainly like that, but it's not going to be something that if you miss a session or if you're new to the group, that you're going to be going, "What the hell's going on here? I don't understand."
Yeah, I can't catch up. I don't understand. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, you're gonna be able to keep up. You're gonna definitely be able to keep up then.
Yeah.
Well, I like the idea that, and we had a great time. As a matter of fact, Kim was in my my game that we ran, my Swords Wizard Light game that we ran at the last Frog God Game Day. And I was actually kind of hoping we'd have another Frog God Game Day before the end of the year, but it was not to be so. Our next Frog God Game Day is not until early 2021. But I had a blast, and I'm just like you, Eric. I said, I need to start running this regularly, because we have the Discord channel. I can run stuff, and of course, here we are, first week in November, and nothing's been done towards that. So I hope your idea succeeds. That's a great idea. I'd love to play in it sometime, just to pop in for an adventure. Yeah.
And here's the thing: when I develop it, I'm gonna probably run it using the Swords and Wizardry Continual Light rules. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to develop it on the blog side using Swords and Wizardry Complete, which will be the Swords and Wizardry when the new printing comes out. Because I want whatever material I come up with. And again, on the blog side, it's going to be the work in progress. It's going to be like the draft. Hopefully, the stuff will then get added to issues of Torchlight or whatever, and you can, see what it actually looks like. Professionals get their finishing touches on it, as opposed to, I'm not even a pro-am. I'm just an amateur when it comes to content. But,
Kim, I just remind me playing the game that remind me though, you have the baby cockatrice that can turn things to glass, so don't forget that. Because I'm not going to name who I told that to, and they immediately said that if you were in their game, they'd kill that off. I said, you've got to be kidding me. I'm not going to allow that in my game. I'm not going to tell you who said that. Who I'm not going to tell you who at Frog God Games said that, but I told them about that. They said that, because she found cockatrice eggs for a cockatrice that turns things to glass, and so she kept the egg. And so I said, well, next time we play, you can hatch the egg and have a little baby cockatrice that basically turns things to glass instead of stone. So
peek under the cloth here. Peek under the cloth.
We figured it's a little baby. It's a little baby, so like it could like hit somebody's hand, like turn their hand to glass. I mean, it wouldn't turn their whole body at first. And so she said, Matt, I could guess. I'm not going to say anything. That was Chuck that said Matt.
Chuck said Matt.
I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying anything. It might not be who you think it is. It might be somebody you think it might be. But yeah, so I thought that was a good concept.
I've given away some weird shit in my games, and Pex and I at North Texas last year were giving out cards with our magic items on it, so then you could come back with a card, and this will buy one of us because we were giving out some unique magic items. It's always magic items are fun, and they're fun. But Mike and I could probably do an episode of this, just improvising magic items on the spot. Because the best thing about great magic items happens to be that you'll give them away in game, because maybe you had something written out about it that was like a sentence long, and as you gave it to the player, it's like, oh, wait a second, I got some inspiration. And you tell the player the inspiration, but you don't write it down yourself. So now they got a really cool magic item that's not been written down anywhere. Yep.
You also got to think about the fun part is when you're playing in shared worlds or shared campaign worlds, that you create something that somebody else has to deal with, and that's what I thought was great about the cockatrice, because they found these eggs. I thought, well, they're just gonna go sell the eggs somewhere, and of course, Kim being crazy Kim, she's like, well, I'm going to take the egg and hatch it, and I was like, oh, that's a great idea. So we'll have a little baby cockatrice. And so I'm thinking this is hilarious because I wanted to bring this cockatrice baby into your campaign someday, or somebody else running Star Wars Light, and having them have to deal with it, and how they deal with it, because that's part of the fun, is screwing over another DM somewhere by giving your character something that the other DM goes, oh my god, you got a sword that does what? Okay, well, let me figure this out.
That smokes from me. Now, Mike, was it at Game Hall, and I think this was you. One of my players was like enlarged and colored.
Yes, that was at Game Hall last year.
Yes.
It wasn't Laramie, it was somebody else. But yes, because he played in your game on Saturday. When he came Sunday, he told me he said, well, this is what happened. I did this and I got permanently enlarged, or something. Was it permanently enlarged? Or I think it
was permanently enlarged. He got a damage bonus from it.
And so I said, okay, no problem. And so actually during the course of my game I ran, he actually got that taken off through some kind of curse, or I can't remember, some kind of magic thing.
Yeah, he tracked me down and told me afterwards.
Yeah. But I thought that was great. I was like, yeah, well, let's run with that. Okay. We're going to run with it. So I didn't say, no, we're not going to do that. That's stupid. Eric gives away crap like crazy. He's terrible DM. I was like, okay, how can we deal with this? Like, okay, yeah, you're just a really giant person. He was like 8 feet tall, wanted into the dungeon. And, you're
not going to find armor that fits you, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's a lot of disadvantages. I mean, most dungeons are not made for however tall he was, 8 or 9 foot people. So I mean, that's a disadvantage right there. You can't go into places, do things that other people can. So I thought it was a pretty good trade off. So I said, yeah, we'll let's run with that. We're going to do that.
I mean, my personal opinion is, when it comes to especially running convention games, is that, you know what, if you're going to err in the idea of being stingy or generous when it comes to Magic, be generous, because one of two things. It's likely they're not playing, even in shared campaigns like we've been doing with Frog God, it's likely they're not going to get a chance to play this character again, number one. And number two, we're playing Swords of Wizardry Light, Continual Light. Odds are they're going to fucking die.
Yeah, the odds are you're going to be in trouble at some point. Or you're not going to make it anyway.
Enjoy the magic while it lasts. There's no reason why you shouldn't, because then you have something you can grab onto. Nobody wants to highlight being, I got killed by the goblin. You know what? After we killed the troll and I got the +1 sword of blood draining, then when I had to fight the Iron Golem, what level are you? Second. But I had to fight the Iron Golem, and you know what? I beat it down to nearly 0, and I died, but the rest of the party killed it. Now, guess what? He died. That's the end, right? But in his mind, how did he die? He died well.
he had a great time. That's the whole point. He said, why be stingy when people could have a good time? One of my favorite stories of campaign I ran, my brother had he wanted to play a goblin thief. I don't know why, but he had a goblin thief. And this guy was terrible. Worst stats ever. Like, I think his highest stat was a 9 dexterity. But he wanted to play it. So it's like, okay, this is a fun role-playing thing. Well, he randomly rolled treasure. He finds a +4 hand axe of hurling, or +3 or +4 hand axe of hurling. One of the first treasures he runs into, like 3rd level.
Wow.
So he's not just a goblin thief anymore. That's terrible. He's a goblin thief with a +4 hatchet that comes back to his hand when he throws it. So, so this made suddenly his character's cool. He's not just this dumb goblin thief. So I said, because of this hatchet, the other goblins are watching him throw this hatchet and chop people's heads off, and it comes back to his hand. So he basically amassed this whole goblin army because they're following, they're following the guy that has the +3 or +4, super magical hatchet. So it just made this really cool, fun, hilarious addition to the party that this just really terrible goblin ended up having a better magic weapon than any other characters in the party, including the paladin or the mage or anybody. They're all, so they're fighting something and they're going, goblin, we need you. Because he's got the +3 hatchet to throw. He's like, okay, I'll throw my +3 hatchet.
Yeah, and he can stay out of combat too.
Yeah,
fight from a distance because he's squishy.
Mm-hmm. But that was fun. But yeah, why be stingy? Go ahead and let your players have some fun. Give them some good items, or just some interesting items. Nothing else, interesting stuff. There's nothing better than interesting, or like an off-brand stuff. I rarely use items as written in the books.
Oh God, listen. Have I given away +1 swords? Sure. Or +1 daggers? Sure. But hey, a +1 dagger that is silvered, or a +1 sword that makes a booming sound when it hits, and that also means roll for wandering encounters, but can also distract the opponent. There's a balance that goes on. I like magic items that have a boon and a curse attached to it. It kind of balances out. This is awesome. But wait a second. For me to recharge my ring, I did this, by the way, and I'm not going to tell you. The son of somebody in our industry, one of the major collectors, I gave a ring that could of spell storing that could only get restored upon the death of the PC. But they didn't have to cause the death; it just had to happen. That's how the spells got restored.
I like it.
Oh my God. Put that in the hands
Lots
of
of role-playing opportunities there, yes.
Oh,
definitely.
Jesus, yes.
I have all sorts of the campaign I'm doing now is a Highfell campaign, and I have all kinds of non-standard. I love non-standard magic items. And or in my campaign, there's rarely do you find a +1 or +2 sword. There's always a story behind it. It's got a name, or it's got a personality, or it does something weird. I just think the game's much more fun that way.
Yeah,
somebody can just flip through there and go, okay, flaming longsword. It does this, this, and this. Okay, cool. I got it right here.
there's something about shopping. It's like, are you shopping in the DMG again?
Yeah, pretty much.
But I really want what my dwarf wants is gauntlets of ogre power and a dwarven throwing hammer. No, dude, you're not. Yeah, but then if I get that, I'm like, no, stop shopping. It's not the Forgotten Realms. You can't shop.
One of my characters got a flaming. He rescued a fire method. It's a long story. I won't tell you. He rescued a fire method from imprisonment and lets him go. And the guy goes, and the fire method goes, I'm going to come back and give you something good because thanks for helping me. And he disappears. And like 2 months of game time later, he appears in his room when he's sleeping. He says, hey, here he goes. It was a dagger. And so the dagger it was a flaming dagger, but instead of, it also summons the Mephit whenever you
go
to the thing. And of course, the Mephit's an a-hole. But actually, he likes the character, but he hates everybody else in the party. So when they need the flaming the dagger, when they have to kill someone, like, go ahead and summon the method. So they have to summon it, and he insults everybody else in the party, but he helps the guy, so I think they fought a golem or something. They needed, or no, it was a really powerful undead. So they needed the flaming dagger. Like, damn it, go ahead and pull it and summon that stupid method. And of course, he appears and assaults everybody and gives them a hard time. But he's also powering the flaming daggers. The guy stabbing the greater mummy or whatever they're fighting. So it's funny because there's trade off there. Do you want this stupid method here who's flitting around and making fun of everybody, or
Well, so, DM, of course you want it because
that's
part of improv.
Of course, I want it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. That's the most fun is when you're improving, and that's and throwing this out there. My favorite players are the ones that make me have to step out from behind the screen and go off script and because they make me go, shit, this isn't. I never planned. What the? That is where I want to be. That's when the game becomes enjoyable for me. If I'm just running it by, even if I wrote the script, if I wrote the adventure, and if it's following it, it's like it's okay. But once you force me out of that safety zone, and then I gotta go. Oh, I this is good now, man. This is you're making me work for my.
Well, the DM's got to have fun too. So, DMs just don't have fun just screwing parties over as much as people think that. We have fun by joining in and doing fun stuff too. My most fun I have the campaign running now is running the NPCs. I've got some really. I had a great NPC named Goiter that unfortunately died our last session. He got crushed to death by a trapper, but he was hilarious to run because he hero worshipped the party, and so he was just fun to run because I made him so over the top, Because when they get into town, he would just talk about their adventures and just overinflate everything, and so everybody in the town just thought they're the most incredible people ever because no matter what they fought, it was like they just beat like a red dragon once Goiter got through with the story. Yeah, and yes, Goiter did have a Goiter too. He had a Goiter, so
maybe more information than the rest of us. What about that Goiter?
Well, it was just one of those things where they said. They go, you see a guy here with a large goiter, what's his name? Goiter. I'm like, oh, God, please. That's the most unimaginative name ever. Like, I don't spend time on names. I just wanted to run the game.
It's my nickname.
His name's Goiter. Just like, back in the old days, if, that's where you got the surnames of Farmer and, somebody used to be a farmer. So if you have Joe Farmer now, whether somewhere their ancestor was a farmer, this guy had a giant
goiter.
My
parents named me Phil, but everybody calls me Goiter.
He's got a giant goiter, so
fill my goiter. Yes, and Bob is right. Players who constantly derail everything in a good way keeps that DM fresh, and that's really what you want. It's a in
a good way, yeah. When they derail you, just to screw you. That's
right. Yeah, and I've had that too. It's like. Listen, it's good if I go, all right, everybody take a pee break, or a bio break. I need 5 minutes to deal with what you just tossed at me. It's bad when you go, wait a second, this is the third. You know that I have nothing going in this direction. Why are we doing this? Fuck with you. All right, at least you're honest, but And Mike, just think, man, we're coming up on an hour and a half. And we literally did a minute and a half of prepping for this episode.
Yeah, and you could tell. No, you couldn't. Of course, you couldn't tell. No, because that's because we're professionals. What can I say?
Professional something. I'm not quite sure. I'm going to take one of my caffeine mints right now to give myself energy.
Well, I'll tell you what. One thing. Well, so next month, just looking ahead, I'm going to throw some things out there. Number one, we got to have a guest. Man, we haven't had a guest in a while. Let's get a guest going. I've got a couple people that have contacted me that want a guest, and so. We need to get them up here because it's always fun to talk all this stuff with somebody else. Mm-hmm. And then also, what we said before, if you have a topic or just some item of interest you want us to talk about, the only thing we won't do is, we're not going to pimp your product probably, unless you pay for a sponsorship. Then
no. Stop. Listen, if you're listening live, all right, and you're in a chat, and you're like, hey, can I mention the fact that I have a new Kickstarter up? Sure, mention it. Mm-hmm. You know what? Maybe by you mentioning it, I'll actually know enough to look at it. But here, I'm going to pimp something right now.
All right.
Go to tenkarstavern.com, Tenkar's Tavern community newsletter. Click on it. join it. Also, email me at tenkars.tavern@gmail.com if you have gaming news, a new release, a new product, a new podcast. You got a YouTube channel going on, your Kickstarter, your Indiegogo. I want to know. I really want to know because my readers want to know. And you know what? Not everybody is going to read the blog every day. Not everybody's going to read the podcast every day. But they'll spend a little time reading a newsletter once a week. It lands in their mailbox. And I'd like to make sure we have the proper news in there. Count you out, Rob? God damn it.
That's our Rob.
No. Seriously, folks. On the blog side, I talk about Kickstarters all the time. I don't get paid to do so. I do gladly take sponsorships, but not for posts. Because another company, a website that is worldly in nature, used to do posts that were paid for.
They may still do that.
No, I don't think they do anymore.
They don't think they do that anymore. They finally got rid. Yeah.
I think that what happened is that when a major publisher, not going to mention the publisher, but a major publisher went, wait a second, what do you, that article that you just said about, we actually paid for an advertisement. We didn't pay for an fluff article. Like, really? Because they were actually upset because it was like, wait a second, it's like stealth advertising. And people don't want stealth advertising.
Look, you can usually spot stuff like that a mile away too. At least I can. So
yeah, I can too.
Yeah.
It's like it's too schmoozy. Listen, if I talk about a Kickstarter and it's like, hey, my personal friend, and like a brother to me, James Spahn is involved in the project, I will tell you flat out. If I know the person and I'm friends with them, I'm going to tell you, this is a friend of mine. Rob Conley is a friend of mine. And yet he does damn good fucking work. Yeah. And I am back in this Kickstarter. I think you should too. That is me being truthful about my connections. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to go, oh my God, this Kickstarter is to die for. And I don't know Rob. Yeah, I know Rob. So.
Well, that was, so we did cover quite a bit from Kickstarters to our play style this week. And, We're doing this weekly, so help support us and download this. If nothing else, look, if you're driving to work, it's an hour and a half hearing two good old boys talk about, gaming and whatever. And we'll usually cover something that it's like just hanging out with your buddies, right?
Where else will New York and Texas come together?
Exactly, yeah. We're coming together. We're clasping hands across the ocean.
For the podcast listeners, Mike and I do this on Wednesday nights, 8:00. You can listen on YouTube. You can also listen on Facebook. But if you're on YouTube, you can actually comment and we'll know who the hell's commenting. As opposed to Facebook, it'll say Facebook user.
Yeah. Well, thanks for everybody that commented tonight, too. We had a lot of engagement tonight, which makes me happy. I love seeing you guys react to what we're saying. So that's great.
I really do appreciate it, folks. We both do.
We do, definitely.
On that note, we are in the midst of the pandemic COVID world, which means pretty much use your common sense. All right, I'm not going to tell you. Mike's not going to tell you what to do. Use your common sense. Keep your loved ones, your family, your friends, your community.
Wear a mask.
Yes.
We got winter coming up anyway. You know what? I don't know why our society didn't wear masks more, because they do in Japan and it's great. So yeah, wear a mask. It doesn't have to be COVID. It could be anything. It could be cold related. Just go ahead and put that mask on.
And if you need advice, we all know medical professionals. We have doctors. We have our primary physicians. Talk to them. All right. Ignore the talking heads on TV because they're more full of shit than Mike and I are.
Yeah, it's look, we usually tell you, make sure you vote. Well, you voted. It's over. Move on. There's nothing you're going to be able to do now that's going to make anybody happy. So just get on with your life. And Eric's right. Don't listen. TV's just there to annoy you and aggravate you.
And sell commercial time.
Yes. Think about gaming. Gaming is fun.
And it's what brings us together, right? That's the commonality. Yes. We should stress our commonalities, not our differences. Folks, be safe, be well. God bless. Roll those dice.
Throw some dice. Yep.
I will talk with you all tomorrow. Mike and I will be back again next Wednesday. hopefully we'll see more of you live in the chat room here.
You may see me in a bathing suit because I'll be on the beach. I'll try to see what I can do. I'll try to see if I can borrow Robert's Speedo. So. But I'll be losing weight. I'll be dropping weight. I'll look great, man.
I close my eyes. I still see your brother.
Ratings are going to be through the roof. It's going to be awesome.
Well, they're going to be through something. They might be throwing up, but they will totally be something.
Yeah.
They don't want to see either one of us in Speedo.
I'm going to rethink that. Yeah, I'm rethinking.
Yeah, what I. For the two of us, we should be going swimming in like the oldie time swim trunks and like prison shirt to show,
the old fashioned one from the 20s. We had like the stripes and the over.
With my suspenders. So, nice, Bob.
Yep.
All right, folks. Thank you so much. We'll catch you later.
Later, guys.